So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning I'm delighted to have with us Alasdair Moore, who's co-founder at IDS. So first, Alasdair, if you'd like to introduce yourself and IDS and what you do to the audience, that would be great.
Absolutely, and thank you, Chris, for having me. So I'm Alasdair Moore. I'm the co-founder and acting CEO for the business. Even though the other counterpart is the CTO, we do crossover very much, yin and yang, as they say. IDS is all about helping companies drive data forward through data quality. The old saying, bad data in, bad data out creates bad problems. We're all about putting in solutions and services to help those companies drive good data quality. It's a very small piece of the data governance world, but it's a very important piece. You wouldn't put bad coffee beans in the coffee machine, would you?
No, absolutely. Great. So it's getting good coffee, and I like my coffee, so I totally line with that one. And for anyone that follows us a lot, we would know that we spoke probably over a year ago when we were in the middle of COVID and lockdown. We talked a lot about getting through COVID. And today we're really going to talk about the background of the organisation and where you're going. So could you tell us a little bit more about your background specifically, Alasdair? What you got in, how you got into business and why this particular one?
Absolutely. Previously to IDS, I had a recruitment company which concentrated in the area of quality assurance and testing, and it was a one-man band business. It was one that was a lifestyle business, shall we say. Yep. And I wanted more from that. And I also wanted to move away from recruitment. I wanted to go into or build something that would, recruitment does deliver value, but a product or solution that would deliver a recurring value back to the end client.
Yeah. And
at the same time, a friend of mine knew another guy called James Breers, who's the other co-founder. You can find him on LinkedIn. He's a charming chap. He used to play rugby for Wigan. But we were recommended to meet one another in a pub in the middle of nowhere. He had a pint, I had a glass of wine. So again, you see the yin and yang in that. He's a Lancashire lad, I'm a Yorkshireman, so all the rest was discussed. But it was a meeting of minds, and he's always been a practitioner at a very high level within testing and automation of quality assurance. Yeah. So it was a very intriguing time. He was a sole contractor, so again, very much like me, one-man band, but wanted to create something that actually left value rather than just 3 months stint in and out, 6 months stint in and out. He wanted that kind of constant solution, and he wanted to grow something that would deliver value and give back. So we started out doing a testing services business. That's how the business actually started, and we were very fortunate and very lucky. I think you create your own luck, but you do need lady luck on your side, as we all know. But from that, we started going, well, actually, we want to create a product and wrap a service around that product. And that's where iData was born. And iData is all about creating data quality. Then when you migrate data, you can ensure your data actually moves. And then you've got the test data management piece, which most of the people within a regulatory business will know GDPR and other regulations like SOX-BANES. It's very important that your data is of a good quality, it's very accurate, and it's only used what it should be used for, especially with the way the world is going.
Yeah. And
data science people love data because it's how they deliver outcomes or give insights to a business to move forwards. Amazon, great example, great business.
Yep.
Data is at the core of what they do.
Yep.
And even companies like Disney and Netflix are now very good at harnessing data, as well as sports organizations as well. Yep. So yeah, it was very much born out of that. I don't want to be on my own. I'm very needy, Chris. I don't want to be on my own. Want to build something. Met someone with the same dream and goals. We both knew quality assurance and data very well. Brought that together, and we're slowly building that dream and realizing it. Hopefully.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. And from the two of you, you've now got quite a significant team that works with you.
Yeah, we're now growing to a size of 48 in the business now. Wow. I believe we're onboarding another 2 in the coming weeks, so it's grown to 50. And bearing in mind, we are focusing on becoming a product company with a wraparound service supported by partners who deliver that product as a service as well.
Yep.
Yeah, it's grown quicker than we thought it would, but that's because we've invested in that business to do so.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I agree. I mean, as you rightly say, I know in looking back on my career, there's been luck, but you do make your own luck, and it's the harder you work. I think it was one of the sports things: harder you work, the luckier we get. But yeah, I think it's fascinating. So when you were growing up, what was the sort of things you were planning on doing, or was data always going to be the thing?
Oh no, Chris, I wanted to be a ski instructor and a tennis coach. I thought I'd bag myself a nice Russian somewhere and I could retire quite young. Or if I played tennis, I'd get a lovely Brazilian somewhere and I'd be looked after. Didn't happen, sadly. But I'm content. I'm happy with what I got.
Brilliant. Well, obviously we talked quite a lot, obviously, about getting through COVID last time. But with that aside, what are some of the biggest issues you'd say you'd had to overcome in the growth of your business?
Innovation, for sure. COVID was a disruptor in the office and how it worked, obviously. And even though we were already set up to work remotely as a business because we delivered remote services to clients, so onshore services, as we call it, but it was about how do you have those water cooler conversations without the business being as one, and that was quite especially if we are building a product out. It's never finished. It's always looking at what's next. How do we make it better for the client? How do we make it more accessible? A bit like McDonald's, their burger isn't the best burger in the world, but people buy it because it's convenient, because you can literally drive through, pick it up and eat it and get on your way. And they're not the best burgers, are they? But that's the thing. It's, where do these innovative ideas come from? How to get everybody to communicate? How to get people to feel part of IDS? Because obviously we do product and services to clients. So often they'd be on a project with a client for a year and they almost feel like they're working for that client and they're not part of IDS, when really they are IDS working for a client. So it's all that was a challenge that we had to come, and we're still looking at how we overcome that. We have a board meeting on Thursday and we have some ideas, but that was a key one. Another one was, even though COVID, and this sounds awful, but COVID opened a lot of doors because it made companies realize that, hang on, technology is important to business. It's not just a cost center. Data also can give us insights. And it also, a bit like the internet when it first started, that global market, it reopened the global market. Now the only problem is a lot of companies are struggling with supply of materials or tin around the world. But now it has, made companies go, well, actually, I can talk to X in the US or Y in Japan. So there's been pros and gains, but the question was not the hardships, but the complications, and that's definitely that. How do we make the culture of the company one and get that innovation? Yes,
I can see that. And what about the structure of the organization? I know with our business, we got to, my first business, we got to over 100 people, and I remember sort of the first 20 people, we knew everything about them. We knew that the families, the friends, the pets. Or you get to around 50 where you get to, and you can only really know the people, but not probably their families. And then you get towards 100, and 3 people turn up you've never met. Who are they? How are you managing that sort of the growth of the business? Because it's been in a relatively short period of time.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a great question because it's one we've had to ask ourselves as well. And we do constant reviews of our onboarding and hiring process. In fact, I'm meeting Ross in a couple of hours to talk about what his KPIs are and how we're going to set what he needs to do moving forwards to make that journey better, including people in HR and delivery and all that kind of good stuff. But we do have like a set process where someone is onboarded and they'll meet people like myself, James, the other co-founder. We used to be heavily involved with the interview process, but like you say, once you get to a certain size, that's removed, and understandably so, unless it's a role that's relevant to what we're doing day to day, then obviously it's still encountered. But it's now at the back end of the process rather than at the beginning of the process where we get to meet the person. And like you said, the piece about the not meeting or not having the office to meet people as a complication. We are now slowly trying to organize events, but our employees are based everywhere. So we've got people down south, up north, think some in Wales now as well. So we're quite spread out. So for everybody just to come to one place is quite difficult. So we are looking at setting up a venture whereby we have, we're calling it innovative lunch. But effectively what it means is we'll get people to have lunches around the business once a week, where they'll talk about what you're doing on a client side, what's helped, what hasn't, and they'll have like a tick box exercise, say this is what came out, this is why, this can improve the business. So we're trying to, that's going to be, none of the business know that yet, by the way. So hopefully this will come out after it's announced at the end of this week. But yeah, you've got a preview, a sneak preview, a little snippet. But yeah, we are constantly scouring and trying to find new ways of doing exactly what you said. How do you keep that you're not just a number feel in a larger organization? And I think it's key, because people have so much knowledge, and how do you share that knowledge? And systems and software are great, but as we know as a business, the data quality can go poor, which can obscure that true image of what's happening. So it's really important you still keep that human connectivity. Technology is fantastic, but that real face-to-face can make a big difference.
Yeah, no, it makes no sense when we talk about I think as founders, as we grow, we won't be and can't be interviewing everybody, as you said, but we've got to be guarding that the process works, that the process delivers the same type of person, the same culture match, the same person that makes an IDS person the right, that makes a person the right person for IDS, and IDS the right company for that person, I guess. But
I remember you saying to me ages ago, and it was a great comment, that if you get it right at the beginning, you can retain people for longer, which adds more value to the business, because you're not losing that IP as they go.
Absolutely.
I always thought that was a great comment by you. I was like, I actually like that. Yeah, to get it right at the start, it has its longevity.
Absolutely, and one of the businesses I worked with some time ago, we recruited a lot of people over a relatively short period of time, and one of the founders, their primary role was making sure the culture was, the culture was clear, it was communicated, that the recruitment processes always followed the same system and referred to the culture a lot, and that has paid dividends, because they really have got a team of people there that I think, barring any major challenges, want to work with the organization for its goals, for its vision, for the long term, which is rarer and rarer nowadays, I think, in business in general.
Yeah, you are. I listen to podcasts quite a lot, 'cause I do a 2-hour walk every morning at 6 a.m. just to start my day. And it's interesting to see how many business owners, business leaders, managers, whoever come on these podcasts, or even team leaders, are saying that nutrition rate is going up and up because people aren't staying at a business for a long time, or they're wanting to switch up and switch out. And COVID and recent events around the world have also accelerated that. You never hear often someone say, I've been at a company for 25 years anymore.
No.
It's such a rarity as my father's father, he started off on the shop floor and ended up as CEO of one of the biggest stainless steel companies in the UK, but he was there for 25, 30, 40 years. He went up the ladder. You just don't, and it's a shame, because I think there's so much can be gained for it. Yes, people say you can miss out because you don't go try new things, and I get that, and I'm not against that. I'm pro people serving their time at IDS and gaining the skills they need to go on to do something else. But I think sometimes the biggest rewards come from staying rather than leaving. The grass is not always greener, as they say.
Yep, agreed. No, completely agree. And as you've grown, what are some of the biggest things you've learned about business, Alasdair?
It's not as easy as it looks.
Yep.
I think quite a hard thing is, I think naturally as a entrepreneur or as a leader, you can be a bit narcissistic. I think that's a trait that you tend to have. And sorry, it's a trait you tend to have, and the ability to let things be given to others as you grow. I'm not talking about delegation. I'm talking about things that you've always wrapped in your own and been successful at,
Yep.
which has created growth,
Yes.
it's very hard to give that baby over and not
Yeah.
have it back. So I think that's been a real tough one personally for me as a human being, because I am a little bit narcissistic. I don't mind saying it. I think it's got some benefits to it as well as negatives. But we've been really fortunate. We've had some great people come and go within our business and still within the business that have enabled me to become less narcissistic, less earnest, but be able to give things away, which is great. And it really does make a difference. I think that's been a big one. That whole giving away. Another difficulty of growing we're finding is managing cash flow and ensuring that what you put back into the business doesn't put you at risk of losing of the business. We've recently gone around a investment round with Maven, which are a large capital house in the UK, and we've gone to them because we know we need to reinvest in our people, in the business, in the product, to have that knock-on effect. And without that, we can get to the goals we need to get to over the next 5 years. So we just put that flag in the sand and said, right, instead of building it through our own funding and putting profits back in, let's accelerate the rate. Because I think, sadly, in the world we're in, and I can't talk for other sectors because I'm not in them, but technology is just advancing so quickly. Yeah. If you can't keep up, if you can't keep innovating, if you can't making your service and product usable and convenience is a huge thing nowadays, isn't it? You just want to press a button and it works. You're not bothered about how it works. You just want to see our pretty face, well, maybe not our pretty faces, but our faces on the screen, and it's clear and you can visualize, and there's no cutoff, there's no network errors, whatever it might be. So yeah, that's been a big thing, because you don't get me wrong, Maven, a great asset to be a part of, but again, it's that little chunk of giving something away, not that pride that you've not done it yourself, even though you have done it. Yeah, there's a lot of, and I sound very selfish, and that's the narcissism coming back in again, isn't it? But it's all about me, Chris. It's all about me. That is one of the hardest parts, is yourself as a business owner, willing to accept help and grow. That's quite conflicting sometimes.
Yes, it can be, and in many cases that that limits the growth. And if you take cash as an example, growth typically requires cash. It's just a fundamental, and most businesses therefore need to make more cash to do so, but very few are cash positive. In other words, the more orders they take, the more cash they make immediately. So most of them are challenged by cash because of the growth. And therefore, it's accepting that it's a bit like, I don't know, trying to walk with a broken leg. You can't do it. It's in many cases an impossibility. In some cases, it isn't. And we've quite often work to change the model so it becomes cash positive, which means the more you grow, the more cash you have. But if not, get the help. I mean, that's the key thing, isn't it? It's almost like the scales of, do I want complete control, or whatever the right word is, or do I want to grow? And having to make that stark choice isn't an easy one, and many people choose not to make that choice, and that's okay too. But if the ultimate choice is if the ultimate goal is growth and significant growth, then we need to get the systems and services, the support that we need to make that happen.
Absolutely. I'm quite a big fan of Jeff Bezos, and obviously his way of growth was, he gave a lot away of the business at the beginning, and he ended up with 1%, I believe, of the business in general, but that 1% is worth billions. It's just, I'm not saying we're going to be like that, but it's that same theory. You've got to sometimes accept help to get to where you want to go.
Someone, I love the phrase, I think our founder talked about it. It's cash flow is flowing of cash, so you've got to both accept, you've got to receive it and give it away. And we need to let it flow through us, whereas the natural instinct is to keep it, but that stops the flow. So not only we might keep it, but we're no longer open to receiving it. So it's a challenge. It's such a challenge, isn't it, for many organisations? And unfortunately, in difficult times, cash isn't as available as it is in good times, which is when we probably don't need it.
It's interesting. Yeah, I know we're going off topic slightly, but the world is, whether people are accepting it or not, it's starting to go back into that recession trend. I think we are in a recession, and even though countries don't admit it, the signs are definitely there. You know, you see the players in the marketplaces freezing hiring or making people redundant.
Yes,
which is quite a good indication. It's not good, but it's a indication that something is on the horizon. And like you say, at that point, the gut reaction is, look, we need to make sure we've got enough cash in the pot to make sure we survive whatever happens. I don't think it'll be a long recession. I'm hoping it's going to be 6 months, but short supplies, Russia, Ukraine, coming out of COVID, all these bits and bobs that have all come together. It's it's going to be an interesting 6 months. I think 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, I think it is, and you know, it would be amazing if we didn't. And you think about, as you rightly say, you know, the effect of COVID, the effect of the war in Ukraine, and before that, the impact of Brexit for many industries. It has all been challenges that could drive us there. I think, in comparison to the previous one was unexpected in its, and therefore people weren't prepared for it. Whereas I think this one has been signposted for a very long time, from the start of COVID, for sure, that we were talking about there was going to be a cost to what we were going to have to do. So hopefully the powers that be and the organisations and businesses in general have prepared for it and are preparing for it. And that feels to be the case when I speak to people, that there is a preparation for it, which means that and a lot of it, that, you know, for me, the depth of it is about sentiment. Is if we believe we'll come out of it fairly quickly, we probably will. And therefore, I think, you know, as long as we keep talking up the fact that it hopefully will be relatively short and relatively shallow, then that's hopefully where it's going to be.
Yeah, I think you can have a bit of certainty around that by ensuring the data that's shared with business leaders and businesses and the general public as well is as accurate. I'm doing a bit of a trumpet blowing exercise here, Chris. But yeah, I do think data is quite key, and I think, as we saw from coming out of COVID, the countries that came out quicker were those countries that were able to look at data, understand what was going on, and then share and communicate. We talk about business communication. Communicate that with the rest of their country, whichever country that may be. In America, it was states, wasn't it? But, you know, the ones that harnessed that and did have the better data quality, the accuracy of data, and the ability to share that data and visualize that data to make it understandable. I think they really came out of COVID a lot stronger than those that didn't.
I'm sure too, and it's interesting you mentioned sport as well. I remember I've been lucky enough to train with Sir Clive Woodward a couple of times, and he talked about, one of his principles was whoever wins. His statement was whoever wins in IT wins, and IT prime. You know, a lot of that was around data. Whoever wins in data wins, and he was, I think he was the first coach to bring the tracking technology into rugby union. I know he tells the story of going to see Arsenal when they first got their first tracking technology that was fairly basic at Arsenal Football Club. And, you know, very much so, the more information we have, the better decisions we make, the better actions we take, and therefore more likely to have success. So for me, it definitely follows.
It's funny you should mention the sports thing then. I know we touched on recruitment earlier and the recruitment process. But I did say listen to podcasts. There's a guy called Kyle Winterbottom who has a podcast called Orbition. Well, he's a company called Orbition, and it's a recruitment company within the data world. So they help companies find good data scientists or CDOs or data leaders. And he brought up the sports analogy, and he's saying, in reality, they're way ahead of everybody else. Because if you think about it, they have the ability to watch the kids play at school, scout them at a very young age, and watch them on that journey as they go from 8, even younger, isn't it nowadays, 4, 5, I suppose, at these local talent clubs, all the way through up to an older age, when they then pull them into the academy, train them, coach them. as a business, we don't have that capability. We can't,
Yeah.
you know, I can't walk into an organization and go, oh, I think Tom over there would be a great developer in about 2 or 3 years. Just let me just put this tracking device on the lad and let's see how he goes, or the young lady, or whoever that might be, being politically correct. But we can't do that. We don't have a track and trace. What we can do is look at social media and see what their kind of feeds are about. If we want someone who's going to be outgoing and promote our own company, we can track that. But the core skills piece, we can do the soft skills, not the core skills tracking piece. And I think people used to rely on university degrees, didn't they, or educational qualifications as a way of gauging that. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think a lot of people are self-taught, home-taught, and you could be missing those diamonds in the rough. Not that it sounds awful. You're not a diamond because you don't go to school. Because I didn't go to university, but do you know what I mean? You could
and I think it's an education qualification shows you're good at doing certain things, which is fine, but it's not a complete recruitment process for any complete individual. And the big part that it doesn't cover in general, whatever it would be, is attitude and behavior, which is ultimately, in my opinion, more important, because we can train skills a lot more easier than we can train attitude. And so finding recruiting people based on attitude is so important. Obviously a base level of skill and qualification depending on what the role is, but it's the attitude and recruiting people that are engaged with our vision and our culture, that want to be part of the team. That's when you get successful teams, whether it's sports or business.
You just prompted me to think, and I do apologize. This happens when you have communication, but you were saying earlier what was one of the issues during COVID.
And
I think we moved away from a society where you'd have a face-to-face interaction. We had this, and it was a very much have one, turn off, next one popped up. We even had them popping up going, we've got so-and-so waiting for you. It's like, and that was a different skill set to the skill set of being able to sit in front of someone, especially a client, when you're delivering a service, or talking them through how to solve a problem, or if you didn't know how to solve a problem, how to answer that question, and throw your hand up and say, I don't know, though I do know people in my business will, leave it with me, I'll come back to you in 24 hours. And that whole consultative skill, because that is a consulting skill to have, and you'll know it from what you've done, Chris, and the word action coach says it all, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
You're about coaching, just not on a screen, but face to face.
Yes.
But that was 2 years of grads not having that experience, 2 years of apprentices not having that face-to-face skill set, which is also due to technology, social media, Facebook, Twitter. I'm going to show my age here, aren't I? Snapchat, I think. Instagram. but all these ways that are slowly moving us away from the skill set of actually just being able to talk to one another face-to-face. And it's just what you're saying. It's that, and that's something that we really need. We need as a business that skill set. So it has made Ross's job, our meeting, as I said later, harder, because one of our reprerequisites is we want people who can do this piece, and do the social media piece, and do the, I don't know why they'd be Snapchatting clients, and I don't want to know really, but do you know what I mean? It's, but also has that face-to-face skill set, and especially if we want to bring them up from the younger ranks, there's that 2-year gap, which is a void. It's a skill set, and we're already in a negative when it comes to the workforce. It's crazy.
No, I completely agree, and it is different, isn't it? I mean, my daughter's in college, and she, her certainly first year was all remote lectures. The second year that they maintained mainly remote lectures, or a lot of remote lectures, and just learning that interaction. Obviously they've done it at school, but in college, etc. It will be, I guess it will become a skill set that might stand people out in recruitment that perhaps didn't before, because it was a taken as read. If you're in a role that requires interaction, you'll be good face to face. But if you've not done it ever or much, then maybe that's not true. And that, it'd be interesting to see the impact of what we've been through when I'm sure lasted, quite a few years from now, we're still sort of unwinding and unpicking some of the things that has affected.
Absolutely, and it, like I say, it'd be like a pebble in a pond, giving those little river shimmers. It will ricochet for quite some time. By the way, I'm not saying every role in our business needs to have that consultative skill set, but we certainly do have some roles.
Yeah, but the ones that do, that it is a skill set that we can't take as read anymore because of the last few years. And if we're younger, that we may never have done it. But even if we've done it previously, having 2 years of not interacting that much on a face-to-face level can affect our behaviours, it can affect our skills. So even a track record of doing it can change. So I think it's it's an interesting piece that needs addressing as we move forward to make sure that people we put out into the field do have the skill, do have the capability, but also, I guess, the skills that maybe require more training of almost basic. How do you operate in a face-to-face environment? There's the physical side of that. I remember I was taught at an early stage in sales is always trying to sit next to the person, not across a desk from a person, so that you don't appear to be in sort of antagonistic. You want to try and be
bullying, Chris.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I was always taught to on a corner, sit on a corner to somebody rather than opposite, because it always feels, and just things like that. Or in networking environments, if you happen to be in them, you can look at a room and say who around in the room is looking actively to speak to somebody. Other people aren't interested, and trying to approach somebody that's not interested is not a very easy thing in any form of life. So it's be interested to see what skills, or maybe what skills or training needs, and therefore services are provided over the next few years to support that growth in this new world.
No, I totally. I'd be interested to hear from you, because obviously you deal with a lot more companies, and we're just one of one, if that makes sense. And what we talk to clients about is their data and their quality, not necessarily about the resource that they have within the business. It is when they've got a shortage, and we'll supply that person to help them. But it'd be interesting to understand from you more about how other companies are looking to solve it, because I think that is a problem within sales, because you need that consultative selling approach, which is quite key in that how the landscape's changed. It'd be interesting to see. I'm sure there's no silver bullet, but a bullet of form that's helping.
I think it's understanding. I mean, I know I work with one organisation, one sales team, and it's like, how now I don't know if the person I need to speak to is at work. The number I have was at that office. How do I get hold of them? I mean, sometimes just how do I get hold of them now, because they don't operate through a switchboard. They're not at their office. So if I don't have the mobile number, and previously there was no need, perhaps, it's a whole new world out there in how to do things differently. So just thinking about, obviously, we're a coaching organisation. I'm keen to know who the best coach or coaches you've worked with, whether that's in business, sport, or life in general.
We mentioned it. We mentioned this earlier before the recording started. As I said, sadly, my father passed away about 4 years ago. I would probably say he was one of the best life coaches I had, which is really, really very fortunate in the essence of he was always there, if that makes sense, to give advice and counsel. And he had a very successful career. He ended up being in charge of Coopers & Lybrand for Leeds and setting that up, and it was Deloitte and so forth. And I often play golf with some of his colleagues who worked with him in those days. And one of the best bits of advice he ever gave was, make sure you surround yourself with great people who are often better than you at what you do, because that will naturally just elevate you in what you're doing. Yeah. And that was one of the best side. But apart from him, apart from the old man, it's a real difficult one, that, because I don't have coaches, but I have, as you probably know, in your years of business, you have friends
Yeah.
who you meet through business, or you have business people who become friends who you talk to, and they're not necessarily coaching you, but you are throwing ideas back and forth, which is a bit like a coaching exercise in one of essence. And I'm very lucky that James, as a co-founder and business partner, is obviously, we didn't know each other before our pint and glass of wine, but we've become very good friends as well as business partners. So we can talk about both business and personal events, which is lovely. So I'm very fortunate in having James in that essence, because if you're an entrepreneur or a co-founder, you don't know everything. I'm sorry, you just don't. And he is very, very, very capable and very good in what he does, which is around that technical area and that delivery area and understanding the drive of the business. So I'm very fortunate in that. And he coaches, he's very kind. He tells me on good ways of doing things, bad way of doing things. Being a typical narcissist, I'm like, oh, we should do it this way, and it's great. And he's like, Al, it sounds great, but in reality, in practice, we can't do it because the underlying technology is that old blue sky thinking, bring you back down to earth scenario. So I'm very lucky in that. There's a guy called Matt Robson, works at Testing Solutions Group, or he's a director of Testing Solutions Group. He's a little bit older than me. I've known him since, gosh, I was 18, 19. Due to schooling, but then obviously we ironically went different ways, but our businesses are very similar. And again, he's been a great person who has helped me and coached me in that respect. Yep. We've had a couple of bad coaches, I won't lie. We've had some. I suppose when you're a business owner, you hear these magic words like, we'll take you from X to Y, and we'll give you the skill sets to become X and Y. And it's a bit like when you see those training videos, don't you? There's like a really big fat gentleman who wants to lose weight, but you have to edit that, Chris. But who wants to lose weight, and there's a picture of him like 6 weeks later, and he's like muscular, looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger, or whatever it might be. And you do it yourself, and you're like, I'm following all the rules. It ain't happening. This is not good coaching. I'm sucking into the machine. And you try and ring someone who's like, please leave a message, answer the phone. This is certainly not working. I've just been done. But yeah, we definitely had some bad coaches where we've been given that kind of. I like to trust people. I want to trust people. I believe in the good of people in the main. I'm definitely a half pint full kind of guy rather than empty. I think sadly that can be taken advantage of, and you can get bitten by that. You just got to keep going past it, because not everybody's the same. The whole story of the minority ruins it for the majority and all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, we've had some bad. I won't name who they are because I think that's unprofessional. But yeah, we've had bad coaches, but in the good ones have been mainly people who we know in the business. I know, Chris, you've given me very sound advice, which was to James and I, which was look at what you need to do and what you don't need to do, and bring someone in to do the bits that you don't necessarily need to do. On the administration piece, and that really did help James and I a lot. So thank you for that. That was a freebie. I'm giving it to everybody now, so they've all got it. That was a great piece of advice, and that in essence is coaching. I was very lucky. I went to a good boarding school called Sedbergh, which was great at coaching you about sports, especially rugby and cricket and everything like that.
Sporting school, isn't it?
Yeah. It was. I mean, those guys were. It was like a military machine. It was phenomenal. But there wasn't one that stuck out. They were all good. I've been very fortunate in that respect. I think my business partner James would be better at asking that question, especially about the sports. Because obviously he played professional rugby and got to a very high level until, bless him, he got his nose broken. But it's one of those things. It goes with the territory. Yeah, there's not one great coach, Chris. Is probably the answer.
No, and I think
really fortunate.
I think it's often, Alasdair, it's different people at different times. I don't believe in one, one coach being the only thing that we need. I'm fortunate. I've got an amazing coach who I think probably ticks most of those boxes most of the time. But yeah, I think it's certain things. Sometimes it's just somebody saying something at some point that is just that light bulb moment, and that doesn't. But yeah, no, it's just an interesting point, because there will be individuals, and you obviously mentioned your father at the start, that are pivotal to certain things at certain times. Some are in a life for longer, some for shorter periods of time, but can make those massive differences. That, going back to what you said about bad coach, I think the primary role as a coach is to help the individual they coach achieve their true potential, rather than promise them things that are, who knows? I mean, who knows where you could be? Really, we know where we could be with the right help, drive, and support. And I think that's the promising things that will happen, is a little bit until you get to know the person in the organization. I don't think you can show people how they might achieve that. That's a structure, that's a process, absolutely. But coaching in its purest form is just helping the individual become the best they could be. I think the best analogy, it's probably tarnish dropped off a little bit, but I know Tiger Woods as a golfer went through a period of he became very egotistical, quite understandably, being the best at that point, the best golfer in the world by a country mile, and decided that he didn't need coaches because no one was as good as him, and sacked all his coaches, and for the next 18 months didn't win a major championship, and realized that the coaches weren't there to be better than him, because that was impossible. They were just there to help him be the best he could be, and that's what coach does. They don't have to be better. They, in many cases, they can't be better. Yeah. And it's just that helping me be the best I can be is the value in itself, if I value myself. I guess.
I liked what you said at the beginning of that, which was the part around, as a coach, you shouldn't be selling the fact you're going to create or promise something. It's the fact that you're going to move someone forwards. And I think that's a trap, not a trap, but often you're sold to saying, I'll come in and I'll create this, when in reality, it doesn't happen.
I think to be fair to any profession in this sort of space, that's what people want to buy. They don't, if buying the idea that somebody's going to help them be the best person they can be, doesn't necessarily something that, but I want it quantified. Okay, so if we quantify it, we've got to tell you this. So it's a difficult one, but I think just saying this is what's going to happen isn't it does, and it's not always what people want. I'm one of my first clients. I went into the business, and it was an amazing business. And I said, look, we can double, treble it. Honestly, I said, look, I can see us doubling, trebling this business in the next 2 years. And what I was there for was because he was currently doing 20 hours a day. He didn't want to grow. He heard me say was, I'm going to make you work harder, and I can't work anymore. Rather than he was there to help me get his time back, get his life back. And it took a little bit of time to work that one out, and we've done so now. But it was like, that isn't always what people want from business in general, but certainly from a business coach. It's not always about cash and growth. Sometimes it's about life and lifestyle and relationships, team, and various things. I don't want this to be obviously a pitch for coaching, so we'll move on. But in all those people that you've spoken about, have you picked up any favourite quotes or sayings that you use on a regular basis, Alasdair?
Yeah, I am quite a what's the word I'm looking for? Chameleon. I'll parrot. I'll pick up things. But sadly, I've got ADHD and I'm dyslexic, so I always get them wrong. So there's not one. Not really.
It's cool.
Not really. I probably do. And in reality, I probably do without realizing. Yeah. I'm one of those annoying people where if I sit with someone for a long time, my accent changes to their accent. and I don't know I'm doing it either. To my mother's horror on quite a few occasions. But yeah, no, there's not.
All good. Some people do, some people don't. It's just I love to collect them, so I've learned so many over doing these interviews. There's some just wonderful ones that I think that my favourite, or there's several favourites, but one was we've all survived 100% of our challenges so far, which I thought was pretty cool in a difficult time. You know, look, we've beaten every challenge we've had so far, so why shouldn't we continue? Which I love, and not similarly, but on the same note was what did Oscar say? Never look backwards because we're not going in that direction.
That's a good one.
And sorry, yeah, I just so I'm picking them up. So sorry, that was more for me than for you.
Not at all.
What would you say you've learned about yourself through your career, Alasdair?
Well, the narcissistic piece I told you about earlier, so I'm not going to.
I don't think you're. Yeah,
do that one again. But what have I learned myself? I am patient to a certain degree. I sometimes have too high expectations of others, and I get into that kind of expectation if I can do it, or that's the right word. If I'm willing to put that effort in, I expect it from others. And I think sometimes in reality, we're obviously not all the same.
No.
But it sometimes disheartens me when I see it. And it's funny, and I'm not saying this is everybody, by the way, but mindsets have of some changed where the expectation is it should be just given and not earned.
Yeah.
And I'm of the schooling is you work hard. You can play hard, but you work hard. You turn up on parade on time every time, and you get out what you put in. And that's and the question was, what have I learned? That hasn't changed.
Yeah,
throughout my life, from when I was young to even in the now. And I think that is difficult because I am one of those individuals who gets up at 6 and I'll put my headphones in and listen to a podcast. Obviously, the Action Coach ones when they come out.
Right.
But I will do that 2-hour walk, and I'll come back and I'll start my work, and I'll probably work through till 6-7 o'clock, and I enjoy it. I love it.
Right.
There are challenges, like you say, and there are times like I'm going, what the hell am I doing, and all that, and I think everybody has that. We're not immune just because we're leaders. We're not emotional retards in that respect. Right. We do have feelings, but I have. Yeah, that's something I've definitely learned about myself, and it's not necessarily something I want to change either. I think it's good to have high expectations and want the best, because by you wanting that in someone else's, they'll get the best as well. It's not a selfish best. It's not a best just for me. It's for that individual as well. So that's something I've learned about me. I just want to succeed. I just want success. I want the business to deliver what it's trying to deliver, which is data certainty, data quality for our clients. Because it does make a difference.
Oh yeah.
Love it or hate it, data does make a difference to your business, no matter what your business is. Whether it's a little cafe on the corner or whether it's the government or whoever, it makes a difference. So by doing good, we are doing good.
Brilliant. Love it. Absolutely. And in what we do, we teach people about key performance indicators. How can you drive anything in any way if you don't know what's going on? And too many businesses don't have any idea about some even the fundamental levels of whether it's cash or a pipeline, sales pipeline or marketing statistics. People just don't know. And but again, the people that get it and work on it, and that we help to work on it, really smash out the park, because most of their competitors aren't doing that. And it's as I say, going back to Clive Woodward, whoever wins in let's say data wins. And I think it's a great saying. So looking forwards, obviously you've had some really significant growth over time. What does the future look like for you guys, and what are some of the challenges you might face, if any?
Like you always say, you're coming about succeeding through challenges. There's always going to be challenges, aren't there? Moving forwards. I mean, we've got a lot of goals. If you saw James's roadmap for the technology itself, it's a never-ending roadmap of change. I mean, obviously, I mentioned the Maven investment, which is fantastic news for ourselves as a business to have that injection of cash flow. And again, it's important that we use it for the right things. It's great being given a chunk of money, but like anything, if you spend it on the wrong things, it actually was a waste of chunk of money in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's written. We're going through that journey now of understanding where does that cash flow need to go to get the biggest.
Yeah.
Great expressions. Bang for your buck, Chris. There you go.
Yep.
Bang for your buck. But yeah, to get the biggest bang for the buck and understand where we really need to turn our attention to make sure we do move forwards, because I like to believe, and I know that everybody in IDS wants to be successful themselves, and by being part of success means they are successful.
Yep.
So it's just understanding what that is, and we have got a series of workshops coming up where we're going to meet with our partners who we sell through, and clients, and internally to understand how and what we can do better.
Yeah.
And that itself is a challenge, because it's trying to pull those resources all together in a confined time. So that will be a challenge, but exciting. I love meeting people and listening to them and understanding what their problems are, because it just helps. It makes improvements and it makes innovation and all that good stuff. So one of the big things for us is to grow our partner channel, have more partners aboard. We do have some incredible partners. We've got Navint, Capita, Testing Solutions Group, Acuma, Hitachi we're talking to at the moment. So we've got some great partners.
Yeah.
They're so interesting to talk. Sorry, I'm getting a bit sidetracked here, but it's not a challenge, it's a good thing. But they're very interesting to talk to and learn from. So we're looking at growing that and adding additional partners. We're looking to enable partners in the US. That's something that we're keen to do.
Brilliant.
Technologies wise, we're really looking at understanding how we can make it more convenient. And when I say convenience, I mean from the user's perspective, how they can use it. It's more intuitive. That buzzword AI and machine learning will be built into product to make the end user's life better. Connectivity, how we can connect it to different software. At the moment, we're very much a Microsoft next to Powerhouse, but we're moving into the Oracle, SAP, and Salesforce arenas, which are Salesforce is going from strength to strength.
Yeah.
And they really are a big innovative machine. So yeah, sorry, some exciting times ahead. We do have a roadmap. James and I are wanting to grow the business where we get it either acquired or merged in the next 4 years.
Yep.
We got some exciting plans ahead. It's just getting there. That's the exciting bit.
Fantastic. Well, we'll make sure we keep coming back and just seeing where you are, because I love following your journey as we go through. Just a couple of questions as we sort of wrap up a little bit. What would you say to anyone that's thinking of going into business right now, Alasdair?
So you talked about coaching earlier, and I talked about Matt Robson. Matt was very good at talking to James and I, because he joined an organization that had gone through a lot of hiccups or road bumps, and he gave some great sound advice to us on how to set up a business from scratch, not only from a mindset piece, but from an infrastructure, technology piece. And we've always kept that methodology in play, and it's always helped us. So and again, just surround yourself with good people that you trust. If you look at a lot of C-suite directors that come into companies, they'll bring their team in from somewhere else because it's their trusted team.
Yes.
Exactly the same thing with a business. Just doesn't matter who it is, just bring those people in that you can't rely on. Oh, I'm late for another call. With a run. Be one
Right.
second.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Alasdair. It's great to see you, and we'll look forward to catching up soon. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
No, Chris, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure and always love talking to you. And I look forward to our next coffee face to face.
Me too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chris. Bye.